Our dear Osborne, which is like a little paradise for us. Queen Victoria once describing Osborne on the 13th of December 1845. Here Queen Victoria and Prince Albert's new private home was an escape from court life in London and Windsor. Its Italian design became known as the Osborne style and was imitated throughout the British Empire. The rooms were filled with furniture and works of art that mirrored the couple's personal tastes, and all the planting in the grounds were to Albert's designs. He was very influential within the house, where many of his ideas and love of technology were put to task. Here we see Prince Albert's bathroom, where he had a hot water system which he designed. Albert was very interested in photography, and there is a row of photographs of the royal children here. The house was never built to impress. It was strictly a family home from the onset, and that was the couple's wish. Somewhere the children could come and be a total family, walk in the grounds, good clean, fresh air, riding, picking flowers, planting trees. Here we see Franz Winterhalter's 1846 painting of the royal family, which hangs in the dining room at Osborne House, a well-known picture that demonstrates domestic harmony, peace and happiness. Victoria and Albert both loved to paint, and throughout the house there are many of their paintings. Many of the state apartments were designed as open plan, which was quite unique at that time, and one good example of this is here, where the billiard room leads off the drawing room. So after dinner, the gentlemen played billiards, and the Queen perhaps would still be in the drawing room, but the gentlemen were not permitted to sit in the presence of the Queen. So there was a very cleverly devised bench seat built so that the gentlemen could actually perch there, which was quite acceptable. But everything was to change. In 1861, Prince Albert had become increasingly ill, and on the 14th of December, Albert died from typhoid fever at Windsor. The Queen was overwhelmed with grief and retired to Osborne, and everyone was plunged into black, even the women who worked on the estate. There was 52 of them, were actually given black material and 4 yards of black ribbon to have dresses made, and even some of the carriages had rubber wheels so as not to disturb the Queen with any noise whatsoever. In the dining room, the marriage of Princess Alice and Prince Louis of Hesse took place in July 1862. However, it was overshadowed by the continued mourning for the death of the Prince Consort, and is said that Queen Victoria sat in a window crying continually. And she withdrew from public life after Albert's death, but kept up with her correspondence and continued to give audiences to ministers and official visitors. She decreed that monuments to honour Albert should be built across the country and empire, including the Albert Memorial. She became very close to John Brown, a servant at Balmoral Castle, even though her children resented him. Victoria was called Mrs. Brown in the press, but despite this, she refused to give up her friendship. In February 1871, the Queen was frantic with worry after her son and heir, Edward, fell ill with typhoid. It came a year after the founding of the French Third Republic, which had provoked anti-monarchist feeling in Britain. When Edward recovered, the Queen used a carefully orchestrated event to boost royal support. She gave a public Thanksgiving service and appeared to crowds on the Buckingham Palace balcony. It marked the Queen's gradual return to public life. And for many years, Victoria had a great fascination for the Indian continent, and she was thoroughly delighted when her seventh and favourite Prime Minister, Benjamin Disraeli, was able to push through the Royal Titles Act of 1876, resulting in Victoria taking on the title of Empress of India. She approved of his imperialist policies, which established Britain as the most powerful nation in the world. Her popularity in Britain soared as she became a symbol of empire towards the end of her reign. And with Victoria's continued fascination with all things India, her Golden Jubilee in June 1887 was no exception. She received Indian servants to mark this special event and promoted one, Abdul Karim, to become her personal teacher or munshi. Karim instructed Victoria in Urdu and Indian affairs and introduced her to curry. He was just 24, but Victoria was fascinated by India, the country she ruled but would never visit. Politicians and members of the royal household resented his position, but despite this, Victoria gave him honours and lands in India and took him with her on visits to the French Riviera. "60 years had passed since the Queen ascended the throne at the young age of 18. She was now 78. The Diamond Jubilee procession began on Tuesday, June the 22nd, 1897, where hundreds of thousands of people crowded the London streets to get a view of their Queen. The route made its way towards St Paul's Cathedral, where a Thanksgiving service was given at the foot of the steps of this magnificent cathedral. The Queen was deeply touched and called it a never-to-be-forgotten day. To Victoria and everyone in London celebrating the Diamond Jubilee, it must have seemed as if the sun would indeed never set on the British Empire, but things were soon to change. On the 22nd of January 1901, the Queen died at Osborne, surrounded by her family. She lay in state in Osborne's dining room, and a few days later, she began her final journey to London to be taken across the Solent on the royal yacht Alberta. The Queen held strict instructions on her funeral, including forbidding black, so the streets of London were decorated in purple and white ribbons. Her body rests next to her Albert at Frogmore in Windsor. It was an end of an era, and a strong sense of uneasiness prevailed. Nobody knew what was to come, a future without their Queen.